What is up, everyone? Come on in. We got another great episode for you on the Fantasy Fellowship channel. My name is Kyle. In this video, this one's going to be very heavily packed with information. This is going to be this is part 2 of the ultimate draft prep guide series here. I might do one more next week, depending if you're drafting this weekend or next weekend. I do think I'll probably do another one of these. But what we're going to do here is I have the screen share. We're going to be going through each team's fantasy depth chart here, and we're just going to kind of tell you what positions and what situations you want to be drafting, and just kind of basically the whole scope of the team. I want to tell you guys what's going on, who we should be targeting, who we should be staying away from. So we're going to go alphabetical here, starting with the Arizona Cardinals. Let me even kind of zoom in farther here. Starting with the Cardinals, this is kind of all filtered by draft position as well. So the first guy being off the board here is James Conner. I think he's locked into a steady running back 2 role for fantasy football, and he can be a fringe running back 1. I know last year he scored a lot of touchdowns. I would expect those to come down a little bit, but he's still going to approach probably double-digit touchdowns. And then they're having like a running back 2 competition between Eno Benjamin and Darrell Williams. It doesn't sound like anyone separated themselves, so continue to take James Conner. I think in the 3rd round, sometimes he dips into the 4th, depending if it's a 10 or 12 team league. So James Conner, I'm still liking him as a running back 2. After that, Marquise Brown, probably the next guy off the board here in the 4th or the 5th round. And he looks really good as a wide receiver 2 as well. But the fact that you can get him as a number 3 bodes really, really well. I think he can be an excellent flex. He did play college ball with Kyler Murray for a season or 2. So Marquise Brown, I'm into him. DeAndre Hopkins, of course, is suspended for 6 games. We'll get to him in a second. But Marquise Brown, seal of approval. I want to be a part of that. This Cardinals defense is going to be really bad. I challenge you to name 1 or 2 starters not named Budda Baker, J.J. Watt, whatever. But either way, they're going to be in a lot of shootouts. So there's Kyler Murray for you. He kind of has flipped spots with Jalen Hurts in a lot of the leagues that I've seen. So Kyler Murray as your QB1 in the 5th or the 6th round looks really, really good. And if he stays healthy and plays a full season, he's a top 5 QB. So I love Murray there. And again, we mentioned the defense, potential shootouts. Up next is probably Rondale Moore. He's the next guy I want to be involved in. Again, losing Christian Kirk and, of course, DeAndre Hopkins out for 6 games. They're going to use Rondale Moore kind of, in the Christian Kirk, Chase Edmonds type situation. So I like his dual threat there. He's going to get carries. He's also going to be peppered with a lot of targets and just get him the ball in open space. So we like Rondale Moore. He's a guy that I'm targeting in the 8th or 9th round as a potential bench receiver, wide receiver 4 for my roster. And then Zach Ertz. If you miss out on all the tight ends, I think Zach Ertz can be a guy that gets you off to a hot start. Again, with Hopkins out for 6 games, the 3 main targets are right here: Marquise, Rondale, and Zach Ertz. Those are the top 3 receivers that I have during that time. And then with DeAndre Hopkins, in a redraft league, I just don't know if I want to burn a roster spot for 6 weeks. I think I'd rather let somebody else hold on to him. And when he returns, again, he's going to have more competition from targets than he might have ever had. So he's kind of a pick that I look elsewhere when Hopkins is kind of being drafted. So I like him. You can take him. You just got to be able to. One, he's suspended. You can't put him in the IR spot. So if you can hold on to him, if you have the patience, go ahead and do it. And then again, we just mentioned these bench guys here. Don't need to mention them. We shouldn't be drafting them for fantasy. Eno Benjamin, Darrell Williams, these are guys that are probably going to be on the waiver wire at some point if anything happens to Connor. So that's the Cardinals. I like them. They're going to be in a lot of shootouts. Target them if you need them. The Atlanta Falcons, really simple evaluation for here. Kyle Pitts is my tight end 3 on the season. I think he can approach 1,200 yards, and the kicker with him is going to be the touchdowns. How many touchdowns does he get? He only had 1 last year. I have him probably at about 5 or 6 this season. And keep in mind, Marcus Mariota, in his successful seasons with the Titans, he was balling with Delaney Walker. So Kyle Pitts, I think in a 12-man league, if you want to get him at the end of the 3rd round, if he dips into the 4th round, I'm taking him there. You want a top 5 tight end this year, and I think Pitts is the guy that is set up for success to smash and just be a really steady tight end 1 for us this year. Drake London going off in like the 7th round, 8th round. I like his value too. He's going to be the number 2 target. I think they're probably 120 plus targets for both Pitts and London. And with London, you can get him as your wide receiver 3 flex, but he does look best on your bench. So if you want to take a rookie receiver, I'm aboard Drake London this season. And then just really cheap, like Cordero Patterson's kind of being left for dead in drafts. I know he's an old converted wide receiver, running back, whatever, flashed randomly last year, but I still think they've been giving him the starter treatment. They're going to limit his touches, but he's going to get all the high volume, not the high volume, but the high efficiency touches. So the red zone touches, the passes, and probably a lot of touchdowns as well. So he looks good as a bench running back, your 3rd running back off the bench. You need to flex him. You need to do whatever. I like Cordero Patterson at his value. We're not drafting Mariota in 1 QB leagues, but for super flex leagues, I'm interested. And then we have to watch the RB2 because they're going to mix in Damian Williams. They're going to mix in Tyler Algier because we mentioned Patterson. He's probably not going to lead the team in carries. They want to make sure he plays the full season. They paid him for 2 years. They want to make sure he stays healthy. So we'll watch and see if Algier can supplant Williams as the RB2. I'm okay with Algier as a late round flyer, end of your draft, one of the last players on your bench. So the Falcons, a little bit of optimism there. I think they could be better than people think. Let's move on to the Baltimore Ravens. You have, of course, Mark Andrews being drafted at the end of the second round. I like Mark Andrews. I like some of the running backs and the receivers in his range. But if you want a top 3 tight end, Mark Andrews is the guy for you. Rashad Bateman being in probably the 5th or the 6th round. I love Rashad Bateman. He's Marquise Brown's leaving a ton of targets up for grabs, and he's going to be the alpha wide receiver 1 for this team with Mark Andrews. So Bateman looks good as a wide receiver 3 flex for you. Go ahead and take him. And then Lamar Jackson, again, he's kind of in that tier of Kyler and Jalen Hurts, just these high upside rushing quarterbacks who looks really, really good. And he bulked up. I think he's going to be able to play a full season. He's a top 5 threat for a QB. And then J.K. Dobbins. I'm kind of nervous about J.K. Dobbins. He's had a serious knee injury last year in August. It sounded like multiple ligaments in here, and they're even talking like he's not cleared for practice contact yet. So I'm a little bit nervous about his availability for week 1. He's a guy that probably goes, it depends on your league. Like ESPN, I think they have him as a 4th round pick. He's probably more of a 6th or 7th round pick for my ADP. So I haven't been drafting a lot of Dobbins. Again, guys coming off serious knee injuries with he's not even cleared for contact yet. So that makes me a little nervous. So I'm kind of swerving on Dobbins. I want to target this Ravens passing game. I think that's where I want to be. And it sounds like they're going to use Mike Davis often to lean on him while Dobbins gets his legs underneath him. And then I got to mention Isaiah Likely, the guy running up the preseason numbers here. He's been one of the best tight ends in preseason. And it sounds like he's got a legit shot to I should probably put him actually up in here because he's going to be maybe fantasy relevant as their 3rd target. So maybe not drafting him as your tight end 1 is a good idea, but if you want to get him on your bench and see what happens, sure, we could have some nice fun with Isaiah Likely in 2 tight end sets. Let's move on to one of the best fantasy offenses in the league this year. That's the Buffalo Bills, starting with Stephon Diggs. I think he's worth, as early as the 7th, 8th, 9th overall pick in PPR leagues. No problem with Stephon Diggs. You're locking yourself into a top 5 upside wide receiver. Josh Allen, the next guy to go off the board in Buffalo. I have him ranked as a 4th round value in 12-team leagues. If you need to secure him in the 3rd round, I guess that's okay. I don't like grabbing quarterback early, but for super flex leagues, he's like with 1st or 2nd pick off the board. I love Josh Allen. So he's my number 1 quarterback this year. I just don't like taking QB1. I don't like being the first person to take QB, but either way, this is a great offense. Gabriel Davis, probably in the 5th round to be your wide receiver 3 flex, I think looks really, really good. A lot of people are split on him. I think he's going to catch a lot of touchdowns. He's going to be, 4 or 5 catches per game. I think he's got a higher floor than people suggest. And he's going to be on the field, 90% plus. A lot of Gabriel Davis opportunity coming. Dawson Knox, if you miss on the tight ends that you're looking for, Dawson Knox can be a fringe top 10, top 12 tight end. He's going to be touchdown dependent. So he's got high volatility, low lows, high highs. But either way, I like getting Dawson Knox. Just make sure you grab another tight end with him to pair. And then the running backs, Devin Singletary, going to be the primary, 1st and 2nd down back. They're going to bring James Cook in for 3rd down and passing situations. Either way, Singletary is a fine low volume, or I guess a fine low end running back too. He's in the 8th or 9th round of fantasy drafts right now. And James Cook, of course, the exciting rookie pass catcher, a guy worth putting on your bench. See what happens. He could be a lottery ticket, maybe down the stretch. And then Isaiah McKenzie seems to have wrapped up the starting slot job that we've seen Cole Beasley just go nuts in. So McKenzie, at the end of your redraft leagues, he's worth a shot as well. And then some other guys that might, be a wrench in the plan here. Zach Moss still looking like he could be the potential goal line back. And then Jamison Crowder is still going to be the number 4 receiver there in Buffalo. So that's the first 4 teams. Let's slide over here and let's keep it going down alphabetical. Let's go to this group of teams. Carolina Panthers, the only 2 Panthers that should be drafted this year. Of course, Christian McCaffrey. I don't need to sell you on Christian McCaffrey. If you're nervous about him, staying healthy, I understand it. But you have to admit, when he plays points per game, he is probably the best pick in fantasy this year. So let's see if McCaffrey can stay healthy. And then you got DJ Moore, one of my favorite picks in the 3rd round. PPR machine. He's probably going to catch 90 to 100 balls this year, if not more. And you have to admit, Baker Mayfield is as as unexciting as we are about Baker Mayfield, this might be the best quarterback that DJ Moore has played with in the NFL. So potentially big numbers coming for DJ Moore. You want to draft these two for sure. And then after that, like I'm kind of just cool being out on the Panthers, Baker Mayfield, maybe in super flex leagues, Robbie Anderson, maybe is like the last pick on your bench kind of thing. But otherwise we'll stay away. And then I do want to mention Tommy Tremble, because they traded away Dan Arnold last year because they were just smitten with Tommy Tremble as a rookie. So he could be a guy that impresses as the third or fourth target on this team. And if you miss on tight end and you need someone, he could be a waiver wire guy. I wouldn't be surprised if he pops week 1. Let's move on to another team that we're not super excited about for fantasy, but it's the Chicago Bears. Darnell Mooney, probably the one Bear that I'm willing to stick my head out and say he's a must-draft target in the 5th or the 6th round. He's going to operate as a wide receiver 2 by the end of the year, but the fact that you can get him as your wide receiver 3 flex, like that's good value. And he's going to lead the team in targets. He's going to lead the team in receptions and yards and probably receiving touchdowns. So Mooney is the one Bear that I'm going to give the seal of approval to. Now with David Montgomery, good player, awful offensive line. This team's going to win maybe 4 or 5 games max. I'm nervous about him being very boom bust. And they've been talking up Khalil Herbert a lot. And they also have this rookie Tristan Ebner that they like a lot. So I'm kind of nervous on Montgomery. It depends on his ADP. If he falls into the 6th or 7th round, I'm okay with it. But I think he's a low end RB2. I kind of view him as like a similar back to David Montgomery, if you're thinking about where you need to draft him. And then Cole Kmet, he might be the last Bear that I'm open to drafting just because tight end is such a mess. If you came away with Dawson Knox and Cole Kmet, I think you can make that duo work. And he's going to be the number 2 target. He's going to be probably over 100 targets this year, maybe 60 to 70 receptions. And the thing with him is he didn't score touchdowns last year, but hopefully he can get in the end zone this year. Justin Fields, nice QB2 option for super flex leagues. Not really a guy I want as my QB1 unless you have another stud, and you're playing 2 QBs, weekly, playing the matchups kind of thing. And then Khalil Herbert, I might actually be okay with Khalil Herbert, but he's more of a handcuff to David Montgomery if he goes down. Herbert could be nice. And then just some guys on the bench here. Bears number 2 wide receiver is not going to be useful for fantasy. But let's go on to the Cincinnati Bengals. Let me grab a drink of water real quick. And Jamar Chase, man, he's a mid-first round pick. You got to get him 5th or 6th overall. I think at the earliest is where I would consider him. Going to lead the team in receiving yards. I think T. Higgins can make a case for receptions and touchdowns, but we know what we're getting with Jamar Chase, one of the best young receivers in the game. You can totally start your draft with him and come back with a running back in the 2nd round. I love Jamar Chase. Joe Mixon, sometimes he goes in the 1st round. Sometimes he dips into the 2nd round. He's one of the best. He's one of the safest running backs to take. His only knock is that they're going to sub in Chris Evans and Samaje Perine for passing 3rd down situations. But either way, improved offensive line, more wins coming for Cincinnati. I could see Joe Mixon being a stud top 5, top 10 running back. I feel safe with him. And again, he's just going to get the volume. I know it's not going to be a lot of receptions, but you're getting a lot of touchdowns, a lot of carries with Joe Mixon. And then we get to T. Higgins, probably my favorite value from the Cincinnati Bengals. Sometimes he goes at the end of round 2. If you get him in the 3rd round, it's a slam dunk. He's going to be probably very similar to Jamar Chase in targets. He's probably going to have more receptions than Jamar Chase. And then the tiebreaker is going to be the touchdowns. They all fell to Jamar Chase last year. Maybe they go to T. Higgins this year. So to me, if I'm taking one of these guys at ADP, give me Higgins at the 2-3 turn versus a 1st round pick in Jamar Chase. And then Joe Burrow, he's kind of, in that 8 to 9, 10 QB range here. If you want to wait for Joe Burrow, I think it's very, very, very good value. And he's a full year removed from his injury now. We might see him scoot around a little bit more and get some more rushing opportunities. And then don't forget about Hayden Hurst. Last year, this team produced tight end number 19, CJ Uzomah. Hayden Hurst is better than CJ Uzomah. He's just a better tight end. And not too long ago, Hayden Hurst was the tight end in Atlanta for 2020, and he delivered a tight end 9 season. So he can be a fringe tight end 1 this year. So don't sleep on him. I think the floor is a safe tight end 2. Just one of those guys you want to put on your bench if you want to draft Dawson Knox and Hayden Hurst. I think that duo can work. And then, of course, we mentioned these guys are the handcuff 3rd down backs for Cincinnati. I don't know if they need to be drafted. Unless you draft Joe Mixon, you want to handcuff it, that's fine. Let's move on to the Cleveland Browns. Tough evaluation with Jacoby Brissett, but I think they're going to run the ball. So Nick Chubb, I'm not interested in Nick Chubb as a running back 1. I think he looks good as an RB2, kind of, going around where Javonte Williams goes at the 2-3 turn. If you can get him in the 3rd round, I'm okay with it. But again, I want him as my RB2, not my RB1. Jacoby Brissett and this team, they have a good defense. They're going to lean on Chubb. They're going to run the ball. And Amari Cooper will be the next guy that I'm considering from the Browns. In the 6th or probably the 7th round, get him as a wide receiver 3, a wide receiver 4, kind of in that flex territory. He's going to be a top 30, top 36 receiver, I think, with Jacoby Brissett, who he's going to pepper him with targets. I mean, he's the clear target guy, probably 130 targets by the end of the year. So it's an okay pick. It's not a sexy pick. So Kareem Hunt, though, he might be the best value. Nah, David Njoku is the best value, but as far as running back goes, Kareem Hunt does present a nice flex value, probably a top 30 running back by the end of the season. Anything happens to Chubb, you got a league winner there potentially with Kareem Hunt, and he's unhappy with his contract. If he gets traded, Kareem Hunt could be in for a big season here. So he's a guy I'm cool with putting on my bench as my RB3. And then, of course, the best value to me is David Njoku. He's the clear number 2 target in this offense for me. And Jacoby Brissett, man, he's kind of a dink and dunk quarterback. I think he's going to lean heavily on Njoku, big target. They paid him to be there. He's the clear tight end 1. So if I'm drafting a Brown, it's probably Njoku. And then you got this mess on the bench here, which I'm kind of just staying away from. Even in redraft leagues, I'm not going to burn a roster spot for Deshaun Watson. So we'll kind of stay away from those guys there. But when Watson comes back, keep in mind, has not played football for like 2 years. He won't be with the team from basically now until December. So it's going to be, I don't think it's going to be all roses when Watson comes back. Let's move on to these are all 4 teams that I'm pretty excited to draft from. Dallas Cowboys, they did lose. They did lose Tyron Smith, their starting left tackle, this week, which is not good. He's probably going to miss the entire season. Hamstring came off the bone, so not great. So I'm a little bit nervous about Ezekiel Elliott, but the one guy that hang your hat on here is CeeDee Lamb in the 2nd round in a PPR draft. If you start off with Austin Eckler or Derrick Henry or something, and you just want to get a nice target hog, CeeDee Lamb is going to be the target hog. He's probably going to have a career high across the board, receptions, targets, yards, touchdowns. It's all CeeDee Lamb. He is the number 1 target here. So draft him round 2. Ezekiel Elliott, end of round 3, 4th round. I think he's a super safe running back too this year. He's kind of like a Nick Chubb to me, where you know what you're getting. You're going to plug him in there. He's going to have a high floor, good chance at a touchdown every week. Super safe, reliable running back 2 for you. Dalton Schultz here, he's kind of the clear number 2 target here. Not a sexy tight end pick, but a guy that's probably going to end up with, 9 to 10 points per game as a floor. I think I like other players where he's going, so I don't end up with a lot of Dalton Schultz. I do end up with a lot of Tony Pollard, though. He's kind of similar to Kareem Hunt. He's got weekly flex upside, and if anything happens to Zeke, like, you got a league winner on your hand. And because of the lack of receiving weapons, we might see Pollard used more on the field with Ezekiel Elliott, might see him used more as a receiving back. So Pollard, I like putting in my back pocket on my bench. Dak Prescott, I mean, I'd rather have Joe Burrow in his range. I'd rather have Russell Wilson in that range. Again, I'm nervous about, the offensive line getting a little bit weaker without Tyron Smith, and then just the lack of passing weapons does make me hesitate a little bit. So that's where I pivot to Russ Wilson, Joe Burrow. I like their offensive pieces better. I'm okay with Dak. He's kind of a fringe, like the 8th, 9th, 10th best quarterback this season. And then a rookie to take a stab at in, the 12th, 13th, 14th round, Jalen Tolbert. He's got the opportunity to be the number 2 receiver. He does have to beat out Noah Brown while these 2 guys get healthy. So it's kind of a mess. When Gallup and Washington come back, I think Tolbert's value could be nothing. So to me, I'm kind of staying away. Let's move on to Denver real quick. I do have Javonte Williams as the first Bronco taken. He's being kind of taken as like the RB 13, 14 off the board, which I think is fair value. He was RB 17 last year in a 50-50 split with Melvin Gordon and Teddy Bridgewater at their QB, which we have to admit Russell Wilson's going to improve this offense. They're going to score more points, score more touchdowns, lead to more opportunities for Javonte Williams. So he's got that going for him. And if he does somehow beat the 50-50 split from Melvin Gordon, even if it's 55-45, that's a double positive. So Russell Wilson, plus if he beats the 50-50 split. So I like Javonte, but again, kind of in that tier with Nick Chubb, Ezekiel Elliott, looks better as an RB2 for your roster. Cortland Sutton, my favorite Denver Bronco to draft. I'm willing to take him at the end of the 3rd round, but he looks like an ideal 4th round pick. He's the alpha receiver for Russell Wilson, and he's going to lead the team in red zone targets, probably going to lead the team in receiving touchdowns. I know a lot of people like Jerry Jeudy, but it's clear training camp says Cortland Sutton's the guy to target here. Jerry Jeudy in the 5th round, 6th round does look nice as a wide receiver 3 flex, and he does have a chance to lead the team in receptions, but I'm going to lean with Sutton for the yards and the touchdowns. Russell Wilson, I mentioned him. He's kind of in that, QB 8, 9 tier with the Burrow and the Prescott and the Brady. And I think he's a nice pick as well in probably like the 8th, 9th round. Alberto Okwuegbunam, not a tight end I'm trying to target. The fact that he's been running into the fourth quarter in the preseason games makes me nervous a little bit. So I think if you're going to draft a Bronco, make it one of these four, or you can snag Melvin Gordon late because we know he's going to be involved. And if anything happens to Javonte Williams, you have a nice running back there. KJ Hamler worth maybe the last pick in your team. He's going to operate as the number 3 receiver, and then Greg Dulcich, we'll see if he gets more run as the season progresses as the rookie tight end. Let's move on to the Detroit Lions, and this is a team you want to get a Lion this year. Their schedule down the stretch is super attractive. It might be my favorite schedule from the playoff run. Starting with DeAndre Swift, I'm willing to take him at the 1-2 turn. If you need to get him there, go ahead and do it. He's an ideal round 2 running back pick for me, especially in PPR leagues. Amon-Ra St. Brown, I'm willing to move him up into the end of the 4th round if I need to secure him. He's going to lead the team in receptions. Jared Goff, this is his poor man's Cooper Kupp. I love Amon-Ra St. Brown. He's not going to do what he did at the end of last year, but he's still going to probably catch, 5, 6, 7 balls on a routine basis here. So he's a super safe wide receiver 3, could end up as a top 20 wide receiver. TJ Hawkinson, not my favorite tight end to take, but he can be, he's kind of in that Dalton Schultz, Dallas Goedert tier for me. He's safe, reliable guy. Not my favorite pick in his range, but he can be a fringe top 5, top 10 tight end. Sounds about right. Don't sleep on DJ Chark. He's the clear number 2 receiver. They put Jameson Williams on the shelf for at least half the year. DJ Chark, they're paying him good money to be there. He's been making camp plays, big, downfield, stretch the field kind of plays. So I like DJ Chark as a guy on my bench. Jared Goff, super flex leagues. He can be a nice QB2. And then don't forget about Jamal Williams. They're going to use him even when DeAndre Swift's healthy. He's a guy that kind of like Melvin Gordon, just a super safe, reliable guy. If you need to whip out a bye-week flex, or if DeAndre Swift gets hurt, you got something there. And then I think Josh Reynolds is the wide receiver 3, while Jameson Williams is away. And then let's get to the Packers. Devontae Adams gone. That bumps Aaron Jones and A.J. Dillon as the best 2 players on this team. That it's going to run. The offense is going to run through the running back. So Aaron Jones, an ideal round 2 running back pick. PPR, he's going to probably set career high in receptions. I love Aaron Jones this year in the 2nd round. A.J. Dillon, though, of all the Packer players, he's my favorite 1-2 target in the 6th round. And sometimes you have to take him in the 5th round. It really depends on the sharpness of your league mates. But 6th round, 7th round is a steal. A.J. Dillon, he's a top 20 running back this year. He was RB22 last year. And like the first month or so, they didn't really use him. But then down the stretch, they really did. I think you're going to want A.J. Dillon on your team this year. This is my stamp. A.J. Dillon is my favorite player to draft in 2022. He is going to be a boss, especially come December when it gets cold at Lambeau. The Packers have a lot of home games at the end of the season for the fantasy playoffs. Allen Lazard, probably the number 1 wide receiver here. He does look okay as a wide receiver 3 flex, probably a better, number 4 on your bench, but he's going to lead the team in probably in targets. So take that for what it's worth. Aaron Rodgers, not an ideal QB1 anymore. Probably best as a QB2 in super flex leagues, but I still think he's got a fringe top 12 season in him. And then a sleeper here, Robert Tonyan. We're waiting to see if he's going to be ready for week 1. But if he's ready for week 1, he's worth a shot there on your bench as your tight end 2. But if they put him on the PUP list, I'm probably out. But you can maybe draft him and put him on your IR and then go from there. And then we have the wide receiver competition here between Cobb, Watson, Dobbs. For redraft league, are you ever going to feel comfortable starting one of these guys? Probably not. The rookies are going to probably come on strong towards October, November, and get acclimated into the offense. But I'm staying away from these guys. Let someone else take them. I'd rather just lean into the running back field. Let's move on to this group of teams here. The Texans, draft Brandon Cooks round 5 as your wide receiver 3. He looks fine there. I don't need to sell you on Brandon Cooks. He's just a super safe, reliable player. Nico Collins, though, moving up draft boards, I actually should swap him with Dameon Pierce because Dameon Pierce is the guy you want from the Texans this year. He's locked up the number 1 running back spot in the preseason here. And he's probably going to operate as a low-end RB2. I know it's the Texans, but they're going to give him the volume, and he can catch passes. His only competition is a 32-year-old Rex Burkhead and Achilles comeback Marlon Mack. So Dameon Pierce, round 7, I think that's the sweet spot for him as your RB2, or he looks best as an RB3 or the first guy on your bench. Nico Collins, just another bench receiver I'm interested in, kind of in that DJ Chark range, someone that you could maybe whip out on bye weeks or flex if needed. And then Brevin Jordan, one of my favorite tight end sleepers. He's going to be on the field a lot. His usage in the preseason with the starting offense is elite. Like, we're talking top 5 tight end elite usage. So don't sleep on him. He's the number 3 target, might even be the number 2 target. So he's one of my favorite guys. Grab him with your last pick. And then Davis Mills, just a QB2 for super flex leagues. I'm just not even going to talk about these guys here. The Colts will make it quick. Jonathan Taylor, I don't need to tell you to take Jonathan Taylor. He's the first or second player off the board. But I do need to pound the table for two guys here. Michael Pittman Jr., top 10, top 12 wide receiver year incoming. One of the best third-round picks you can make in a PPR league. We're talking Matt Ryan here. The upgrade from Matt Ryan from Carson Wentz, I think it's going to be a huge boost for him. He's a fringe wide receiver 1 this season. So Nyheim Hines, the other guy I got to pound the table for in a PPR format. I think he's an ideal RB3, one of the guys you want to have on your bench, pull him up for bye weeks, or in case of emergency, you can end up starting him as a running back too. Matt Ryan, super flex leagues, I'm okay with it. Not for QB1 leagues. Streaming for QB1, sure. And then don't sleep on Mo Ali Cox. Starting tight end for Matt Ryan's always been a pretty good bet. These guys, I'm interested. Just don't know if we're going to trust them week to week. Let's move on to the Jacksonville Jags. Exciting offense here. I think Travis Etienne gets things interesting at the end of round 3, round 4. He does look like a really nice running back 2 for PPR leagues. And round 4 is kind of tough. I think running back 2, he's the one guy I want in the 4th round. Christian Kirk. Now, my favorite value from the Jags is Christian Kirk. He is kind of all over the place. I'm willing to take him in the 7th round. I think he's got an ADP of end of round 8, but 7th round, I'm willing to grab Christian Kirk. Going to lead the team in receptions, going to lead the team in yards, maybe touchdowns as well. We're talking upwards of 85, 90 catches for Christian Kirk. He's going to be a PPR beast. And then Trevor Lawrence. I actually think I have Trevor Lawrence in a tier with Kirk Cousins, Derek Carr, Matt Stafford, Aaron Rodgers. He's a fringe quarterback 1 this year. He's going to run the ball, for 300-400 yards. And then the kicker is going to be, can he be closer to 30 touchdowns than he is to 20? If he gets up to 30 touchdowns passing, he's got legit QB1 upside. We're talking QB12 in that range there. So I love Trevor Lawrence. Super flex leagues, he's my ideal QB2. But man, if you want to draft Lawrence and put him on your bench as your QB2, he's my ideal QB2 for 1 QB leagues. And then we got some other tertiary targets here. Zay Jones, Marvin Jones, these guys are going to be operating as the number 2, number 3 receivers. I'm putting my money on Zay Jones, but both guys can be nice bench pieces for you. And then another late sleeper tight end is Evan Ingram. They're paying him big money to be there. He's going to be involved in the offense. Looks good as a tight end 2 or potential streaming tight end 1 option. I'm out on James Robinson. I'm not going to draft a guy coming off an Achilles injury that happened in December. I'm going to let somebody else do it. Give me ETN, give me Kirk. I'd rather have those pieces of the offense than James Robinson. Hopefully Visca can do something here, but we won't even want to talk about him. Moving on to the Kansas City Chiefs. Travis Kelce is the target dog here. He is worth a late 1st round pick. Ideal if you get him in the 2nd round, that's fantastic, but he is my tight end 1. Patrick Mahomes, this is the biggest discount we're ever going to get on him. In the 5th or the 6th round, take him as a top 5 lock for a QB. The best value is probably Juju Smith-Schuster. In the 5th or the 6th round, I'm willing to take him there. The number 1 receiving target. He's going to probably put up 130 targets in this offense, have a chance at 80 to 90 receptions if he stays healthy. Looks great as your number 3 or 1st player on your bench, something like that. Clyde Edwards-Helaire is the low-hanging fruit RB2 of choice here. If you want to wait for the 7th, 8th round, Edwards-Helaire going to be good for 10 points PPR. I think that's fine. Take a stab at Marquez Valdes-Scantling. He's going to be boom bust, but he's a guy that I'm willing to put on my bench. And then with these guys down here, Sky Moore's a sexy pick. I just don't know if he's going to be able to climb the depth chart and be useful unless there's an injury ahead of him. Hardman we're out on. McKinnon's just a 3rd down back. Pacheco, nice story, but I'm going to let somebody else draft him. Let's speed it up a little bit here. We're going about 28 minutes deep. Raiders, you want Devontae Adams. I don't know if I love him as a top 10 pick, around 12, 13 at the turn. It looks good. He does look better as a wide receiver too. If you can come away with Diggs and Adams, we're cooking. Darren Waller wants a new contract. 5th or 6th round pick. I got to wait and see what the contract is. So I'm kind of swerving on Waller. I'd rather reach for Pitts or fall for Goddard. One of those 2 tight ends for me. The player that's got the best value from this team, though, is Hunter Renfrow. He's still going to catch 80 to 90 balls in this offense. Get him in the 6th or 7th round if you can. Really nice wide receiver 3 in PPR leagues. And then Derek Carr, he's going to be a top 10, top 12 quarterback this year with the added weapons here. The running backs, I'm not really targeting these guys. It's going to be a committee of Jacobs, White, Abdullah. I'm staying away from these guys. If you have to do it, you can do it. Jacobs is fine. He could lead the team in rushing touchdowns, but I'm nervous. He's not going to have any PPR value. They're going to use Amir Abdullah, Brandon Bolden. I'm staying away from the Raiders running back field. Give me Renfrow, give me Adams, give me Carr, and maybe Waller. The Chargers, probably my favorite team in the AFC this year. Eckler, worth, the 4th, 5th, 6th overall pick. Mike Williams, I'm on team Mike Williams over Keenan Allen. Allen has shown regression the last couple of years in his efficiency. also 30 years old. They paid Mike Williams big money to be there. Mike Williams is the guy. Round 3, round 4 is the sweet spot for me. I'm passing on Keenan Allen. Give me Michael Pittman Jr., T. Higgins in that range. And then if you have to draft a QB early, it's Justin Herbert. If he goes as QB 2 or 3 off the board, I'm fine with that. He is the guy that I'm willing to take in the 5th round. Probably the earliest QB I'm willing to take is Herbert. And then guys you want to put on your bench, Palmer as the number 3 target, Everett as the potential tight end 2. Stay away from these guys here on the bench. With the Rams, we'll see if Stafford can stay healthy for the full year. But either way, I don't have to tell you to take Cooper Kupp. He's a top 4 pick in PPR leagues this year. I do want to make sure I pound the table for Allen Robinson. Last year when Robert Woods got hurt, he was a top 12 receiver in fantasy. Allen Robinson has top 12 upside at the position, and he's going in the 6th, 7th round sometimes of fantasy draft. So one of my favorite values, Allen Robinson. Draft him if you can. Staying away from Cam Akers. Again, Achilles injury. I don't want to touch guys coming off of serious injuries like this. Matthew Stafford, I'm okay with him as a fringe QB1. Higbee might be the guy to target as a tight end 2. Again, Van Jefferson coming back from 2 serious knee surgeries. Probably not going to draft him, so it looks like Higbee's the number 3 there. And then Darrell Henderson. I'd rather draft Henderson than I would Akers at ADP. They're going to use both guys. I don't see a bell cow role here if anything happens to Akers. You got something with Henderson. So to me, Allen Robinson's my favorite Ram to take. The Miami Dolphins. You want to be a part of the Dolphins this year. Tyreek Hill, worth a mid to late round 2 pick. I prefer Jalen Waddle at ADP at the 3-4 turn for sure. And then Chase Edmonds, man, they paid him good money to be there. He's going to be a low-end running back 2 for PPR leagues. Tua Tagovailoa could be a nice QB1 option most weeks. I think he does look best as a QB2 in Superflex leagues. But if you told me my QBs are Tua and Trevor Lawrence in a 1 QB league, I'm cool with that. You can play matchups. And then Raheem Mostert might be the guy that gets some more carries there. So I'm interested in him as the RB2. Stay away from these guys. Gesicki, Wilson, Sony Michel, just not going to be consistent enough for fantasy lineups. Minnesota Vikings. Draft Justin Jefferson. He's my number 1 player to target in the top 5 rounds. I don't need to say it anymore. Jefferson in the Cooper Kupp role in this offense. He's the guy I want with the top 5 pick. Dalvin Cook, end of the 1st round. I'm cool with it. Points per game. He's going to be a beast. I know he's got injury upside. So does Christian McCaffrey. But if he gives you 14, 15 games, you're going to take it. He's going to average 20 points per game. Love him as a passing weapon in this offense. Adam Thielen. Touchdown machine, 7th, 8th round pick. I'm okay with it. Just make sure you have a potential backup in case he gets injured or slows down. Kirk Cousins, though, fringe QB1. He's been a QB1 the last 2 seasons in 12-team leagues. He's going to continue to be the same. More passing volume, more efficiency coming his way for this passing offense. And then if you're nervous about Adam Thielen, you have to like KJ Osborne. They've been talking him up. The beat writers there have been talking him up as a potential 1,000-yard receiver. And again, if something happens to Thielen, you got the number 2 receiver in this offense, which is going to be very fruitful. And then Irv Smith, just another tight end I want to collect. If I get Dawson Knox and Irv Smith, I can make that work. I'm not drafting. If you draft Devin Cook, you don't have to draft Alexander Mattison. They drafted Ty Chandler for a reason. They're going to use Chandler and Nwangwu more. I don't think it's Alexander Madison's job necessarily. If Cook goes down, it's going to probably be by committee this year. The Patriots, not a team I love to draft from. If I have to tell you one person I want on my team, it's Jacoby Myers. He's going to lead the team in receptions, probably upwards 80 to 90 balls this year. Super safe, reliable wide receiver 3 flex. Between Stevenson and Harris, though, I don't trust it. I think these guys could be roster cloggers this year. If I have to draft one, I want Stevenson. Harris is fine, but again, I don't really know if I trust the running back situations here. Stevenson round 8, I'm cool with. Jacoby for sure around 10, 11. Hunter Henry's just so touchdown dependent, and they've been talking up Jonnu Smith here. I think they're going to kind of correct what they did last year wrong. So I'm kind of out on Hunter Henry. Mac Jones, maybe he's a QB2 for Superflex leagues. I'm having a tough time trusting the Patriots offense here. They've looked like garbage in preseason and training camp. So to me, it's only Jacoby Myers, maybe Ramondre. With the Saints, assuming Alvin Kamara plays a full season, let's just get that out of the way. He's a top 10 running back, worth a round 2 pick. Does have some risk, though, with that suspension looming. I think you want to be a part of this passing game, though. Michael Thomas in the 5th, 6th round. If he plays in a full season, you're going to like what you get out of him. I do prefer Chris Olave as my number 1 target in this offense. 8th, 9th round for the rookie receiver. Pretty good value there as a wide receiver 4 for you on your bench. Jarvis Landry, just a trustworthy veteran that you could whip out maybe for 10, 12 points on a PPR basis. And then Winston, one of my ideal QB2s. I think Trevor Lawrence, Jameis Winston, Tua, I like these guys as QB2s. Stay away from these guys. Troutman, Taysom Hill, Mark Ingram, just not interested there. The New York Giants, the only guy I want, Saquon Barkley, round 2. I think he's going to be a top 10 running back. I can't trust Daniel Jones in this passing game at all. So to me, I'm going to keep it simple: Saquon Barkley or bust. Kind of avoid the rest of the Giants. Some exciting teams here. We have the New York Jets. The only guy I want to pound the table for here is Elijah Moore. He's a wide receiver 3 for fantasy football this year, the clear number 1. Doesn't matter who his QB is. He proved that last year. I think 6th, 7th round for Elijah Moore feels about good. I'm not drafting Breece Hall. He's kind of the number 1. He's the number 2 right now behind Michael Carter. He could, eventually overtake him, but are we excited about this Jets running game? No, we're excited about the Jets losing games and dumping it off to Michael Carter, I think. So to me, I like Breece Hall. I'm not willing to take him with the 4th or 5th round pick that it costs right now. Give me Travis Etienne. Give me some of the other guys in that range. Garrett Wilson, a guy I'm willing to take, in the 9th, 10th round as a potential, bench player, maybe someone that I could be starting by mid to late season. I like the value on Carter, and then Tyler Conklin's tight end 1. I'm just not drafting any of these guys here on the bench. The Eagles, one of my favorite teams this year. They're going to win the NFC East. A.J. Brown, end of round 2. Round 3 is a steal. PPR, standard, half PPR, doesn't matter. A.J. Brown's a boss. You want him on your team as your wide receiver 2. Jalen Hurts, my favorite QB to draft this year. He's a top 5 QB. You can get him in the 6th round. Dallas Goedert, my favorite tight end value to draft this year. I'm willing to take him in the 7th or the 8th round. I would rather have Dallas Goedert as my tight end than Devonta Smith as my number 3 flex receiver. I like Devonta Smith, but he's not the receiver 1 on this team. I think there's only room for, 2 passing options. I think Smith's going to be very volatile. So to me, it's A.J. Brown, Goddard. Those are the 2 targets here. If I have to draft an Eagle running back, it's Kenneth Gainwell. Stay away from Miles Sanders. He told us to stay away from him himself. So stay away from these guys here on the bench. The Steelers. Arguably the worst offensive line in the game. I'm okay with Najee Harris. I think he looks best as a running back 1. I'd rather have Joe Mixon. I'd rather have DeAndre Swift, Aaron Jones, more exciting pieces there. The receivers, I don't trust them. Deontay Johnson in the 4th round, no thank you. George Pickens is okay. Sleeper, are we ever going to feel comfortable starting these guys? Maybe Deontay because of his high floor, but I think I'm going to tell you guys to stay away from the Steelers receivers. And then with Pat Freiermuth, tight end, such a low-hanging fruit position. He could be a nice asset as a tight end 2, a fringe tight end 1 for you. And then just stay away from these guys. I think in super flex leagues, give me Kenny Pickett at the end of my draft. The 49ers. We need to pump the brakes on the 49ers. They're going to have a bad offensive line this year. They have a stud left tackle, but everything else is questionable. Deebo Samuel, not a guy I'm drafting a lot. I have him as a 3rd round value. He goes in round 2. I'm not drafting him a lot. I think he's not going to touch his numbers from last year even closely. If you're drafting a 49er this year, it's Trey Lance as your QB1. I'm okay with Kittle as a tight end, but again, I'd rather wait for Goddard. Or even, we talked about Ertz or Knox and, a couple other tight end options for you. I actually like Brandon Ayuk. If I'm going to draft any 49ers, I want Lance and Ayuk. Elijah Mitchell, I'm cool with as a running back too, because we don't know what they're doing as their number running back too. So to me, Mitchell, Ayuk, Lance are the hot names for San Francisco that I find myself drafting. And then we'll see if Danny Gray can beat Jawan Jennings as the wide receiver too. Let's finish it up here. Final 4 teams. Seattle Seahawks, if you want to just cross Seattle off your list, I'm cool with it. Metcalf, wide receiver 3 flex, boom bust, that's fine. He's really the only guy I'm comfortable taking as a fringe starter here. Lockett, don't know if I want him on my team. Rashad Penny, I'm okay with him. Looks fine as a running back 3. I don't love it. Seattle's not going to win a lot of games, bad offensive line, that kind of thing. Noah Fant is okay as a fringe tight end 1, looks best as a number 2. Kenneth Walker with the hernia, not excited to get him on my team. Drew Lock, Geno Smith. Let's just move on here. I stay away from Seattle. Metcalf only for me. Tampa Bay Buccaneers. They got 2 second-round picks: Leonard Fournette, Mike Evans. I like both these guys. Not excited about it, but they're going to be safe and steady, reliable players. Chris Godwin. I've been kind of pounding the table and saying stay away from injured players, but it looks like he is the one guy here that I'm going to say, coming off of a serious knee injury, he looks to be like the one that actually looks like he can play this year. So he's going to be ready for week 1. I'm fine with Godwin. He kind of goes in the 5th or 6th round, though. If you get him in the 6th, 7th, cool. I'm not willing to reach on an injured player, though. To be honest, the best value in Tampa Bay is Russell Gage, because we know Mike Evans, soft tissue injuries, yada, yada. Chris Godwin coming back from a serious knee injury. Julio Jones is old. Russell Gage might be the best receiver on this team for fantasy purposes, consistently. And then Tom Brady, 45. This offensive line is in shambles right now. They're missing some starters. They got injuries across the board. I'm nervous about Tampa Bay, guys. I don't know if I need to say Tampa Bay's must draft this year. So take them at your own risk. I like these guys that I have listed here at the top. Rashad White's really the only bench guy I want to put on my team. Tennessee, another team I'm nervous about. Not a great offensive line, no receiver weapons I want to draft. Derrick Henry, it's tough, man. He's getting old. He's got a lot of touches, serious foot injury last year. Taking at your own risk. That's all I got to say. I'm not excited to draft Titans. I don't even want to really talk about them. Robert Woods coming off a knee injury, older. Austin Hooper might be the best value just because it's tight end. Tannehill, tight end or quarterback 2 for Superflex leagues. We're not drafting Treylon Burks, Nick Westbrook, Kyle Phillips. I'm nervous about Tennessee, guys. Derrick Henry or bust. And then we'll finish here with the the Washington Commanders. Still getting used to that. Terry McLaurin is fine as a wide receiver 2-3. I don't love it. I'm cool with Jahan Dotson as a bench player for me. The running backs, J.D. McKissick is kind of like a Naheem Hines running back PPR kind of guy. Brian Robinson might be the best value, though. I think he's going to lead the team in touches and goal line touches. But to be honest here, I think we can just stay away from Washington. It just feels too hard to trust for me, guys. So that's how I'm feeling about the landscape of the league here. That was the ultimate draft guide. If you guys want another one of these week 3, let me know. I can get you guys ready if you have your drafts next weekend. I will totally do this again. This is a lot of fun, and it's good for me to recap and just get my feelings out there. But that's it. Enjoy your fantasy football drafts this weekend. Have a great one. Thank you so much for your time. Subscribe, like, all that good stuff. Check out the 2022 draft kit. Get your cheat sheets. They're in there hot, off the press. Thank you, guys. We'll see you in a future video. Peace.